Hello there, sword friends. This is going to be a sword log vlog blog type video about getting fucked the wrong way with swords. It's really not the best phrasing of what I mean, but we'll continue. The point I'm really driving at is I'd like to hear some stories about how you've been screwed over, frankly, in some of the dealings that you've had with buying and selling and swapping swords. And if you can share some in the commentary below, I'd be grateful to hear it. The reason is I've heard a whole bunch of random nonsense on the forums lately. It seems like there's a lot of little scammers and stuff like that going out, or drama happening on the forums where people are buying stuff and disagreeing and not having a good old time with it. Overwhelmingly, my experience in buying swords has been positive. I've had a lot of fun. I've met really awesome people. I've gotten a chance to hold and view and interact and play with more swords than I ever thought I would. So I have really a lot of positive things to say, but I want to focus a little bit on the negative because it's more fun. And I think that there's some lessons to be learned from other people's bad experience, and hopefully we can, avoid getting dicked over in the future. So I can share some of the experiences that I've had, and I'd like you to share some of yours. The first one that comes to mind is an experience that I had with eBay some time ago, where there was a Lion Dog katana for sale, and it looked, like a great deal, but it was taken with some shitty cell phone photos. And so I asked the guy, hey, is there anything wrong with the sword? Is there chips, bends, nicks, scuffs? Is it rusted, edge roll, loose Ito, crack suka, any of that kind of stuff? And he said, no, it's brand new. You're going to be super happy with it. So, taking that at face value, I picked up the sword, and when I got it, it was all of those bad things. The top of the sword was chipped a little bit. There was nicks. There was a lot of scuffs. There was some, rust on the blade and some spotting. It had been used quite a bit in the past. It looked like it might have been sharpened. The Ito was loose. The kasha was coming off. Like, it was in a state of disarray. And I contacted the guy and said, hey, here's photos. All of this stuff is bad. Did I not ask the question properly? I'd like to return it. And he said, hey, nope, you've taken the sword apart, so it's on you. There was no return policy. And because I had taken a photo of the cracked suka and said, hey, there's a crack in the suka as well, I said, no refunds. It's, you did all that. That's on you. It was not, that's, you fucked it up. And I was like, so immediately it's really tough for you to deal with that, because you're like, okay, well, I'm getting fucked and this is not fun. And you want to toss out a ton of Effenheimers and scream and rage, but that's not really constructive. So I took some photos and I played my case to eBay, and this story has a reasonably happy ending where I got my money back, but it was still incredibly stressful and a colossal waste of time. I could see the photos, that I'd looked at with, maybe my googly drunk eyes or something like that. And some of the photos made it a little more apparent when I was holding it in my hand that wasn't a goofy lighting effect. That was just the sword being fucked up. But in retrospect, I think the thing I learned from this is, one, remaining calm is definitely a good thing. I knew that beforehand, but this is a very tangible example where if I'd started tossing out the Effenheimers that I so longingly wanted to toss out, then it would have been a lot easier to paint me as the bad guy, the fucker, instead of the fucky, if you will. And that would have made it less, easier, at least for eBay to keep my money, or to not help me out. But I remained calm. I took photos and I explained my situation as best I could. And then when the eBay kind of arbitration or moderator came in, they sided with me. I got my money back. But still, even though that's the case, like, it's really stressful to think you're getting dicked over. And even if it's not a money thing and it's a principle thing, it's still really shitty to have your money stolen and to be dicked over. It's not a fun feeling. It creates a lot of stress in your life, and it's not something you want. So even if it ends up positively, it's still a negative experience. You still feel kind of shitty, even if you come out ahead, and or at least come out neutral. And that's kind of, I wasted a little money in shipping and a bunch of time, and I got a bunch of stress, and that's all stuff I don't need. Life throws enough problems at you to that you can't avoid, to kind of take on more that you don't need. So in retrospect, I would have asked also for more clarifying photos, and I wouldn't have been so hasty. Even though the seller said, hey, it's brand new and it doesn't have these problems, I would have liked to see that more clearly. Take a better close-up of a cell phone, get it in better light. Tomorrow when it's sunny outside or something like that, take a photo. I would have waited for that. I was worried that I'd miss the deal, and that ended up biting me in the ass. So there are times where that same thing has worked out very well for me, but in this case, it did not. And if you're not willing to deal with the stress, which I can assume would be more than some people would want to deal with, it's best to just avoid it. So, clarifying photos, and don't be a dick back, because it doesn't help. Remain calm. The other situation that I can actually talk about would be one that I'm kind of in the midst of right now, and I won't name names because I don't want to throw the guy under the bus. He's not here to explain himself. It's an actual, real, member of the community type situation, and frankly, I still like the guy, so I don't want to cause more drama than is necessary. But it is an interesting situation that is, I suppose, worth noting as it relates to this topic, and that is one. I sent somebody some swords for restoration. Now, the swords were like my 25th anniversary Shinto katana and a Last Legend sword, and they had some edge damage to them, and I was going to get them fixed up at a price that I could actually justify sending the swords out to get fixed. Because very often, when you polish a sword like the one sitting behind me, they cost a ton of money. Like, it's over $1,000 most of the time to get a Japanese sword edge profiled and fixed up. It doesn't have to be. Sometimes it can be cheaper if you don't have it polished, but to get a nice, shiny surface, it's usually a substantial investment. And most of the time, a sword that is worth $500 to $1,000 just doesn't warrant the investment. Especially if you're not using it for like competitive cutting or as a regular tool for training. It's tough to justify it. So anyway, I sent some swords off to a person as well as payment, all at the same time. It was supposed to take a couple weeks. Totally wasn't expecting it to take really a couple weeks. I expected a couple months, honestly. A couple months, some excuses came by, some communication became less frequent. Phone got turned off, emails stopped coming through, and now it's been about a year, and I'm not sure what's exactly going to happen. We left off at, I'll send you your swords. They're boxed up. I'm just waiting for an opportunity, but still been a long time. And in this case, I'm going to choose to remain positive, even though if I heard myself talking and was watching somebody, I'd probably say you're fucked and you should know better. But I'm going to choose to remain positive, because that's a more constructive thing to do. And the thing is, though, there are some lessons to be learned. One, I wouldn't have sent two. I would have sent one. At least minimize your risk, right? By sending two things at once, you open yourself up for opportunity for things to go wrong. And most of the time, people can only work on one thing at a time. Especially if you've never worked with that person directly and you don't have means to get your stuff back. You don't know other people in their circle. There's just a lot of risk in sending two things. The additional bit is I sent payment at the same time for services that hadn't been rendered. So, yes, there are some legal recourses and things like that, but for items of this value, does it justify me taking a plane somewhere to go fix it? There are some things that I could do, I get that, but at the same time, there's a lot of time commitment to really resolve the issue in a legal way, and is that you have to consider that. So to minimize the risk, send one, and then also really try to work with the person taking the money to make sure that they're okay with taking payment after service has been completed. Now, usually there's a way to work that out. A person that's doing a service, if they want payment in front, that's usually for a reason, because other people have dicked them over, had them do work, and then stiffed them. So they still have the product, but that product is not the same as cash. And if they have to go resell it, then, they might be taking a loss or a hit. So there's risk in both ways. And I think but in retrospect, I would have really liked to work it out where I paid after I saw a photo of a finished sword, then I send money and they send stuff. That seems to be a reasonable way to do it. I'm going to send you money, even if there's a small deposit or something like that, maybe 10%, something reasonable anyway. But if you have my stuff, which is worth more money than the services provided, that should be enough collateral, if you will. And as such, when you send me a photo of a finished product, I'll send you money, and then you can send the sword, so that nobody's really being dicked over, having too much risk, right? So those are some thoughts that I'd have in terms of shit that's happened. Some lessons that I've learned along the way, and some downsides. None of them are overly horrible, I guess you can say. Like I said, overwhelmingly the stuff I've had going on in the community and with buying and selling and trading has really largely been positive. Most people are very honest. Some are very cautious, but still very honest. and of course there's some dickheads out there. But nevertheless, the point is that I wouldn't let it scare you, but I'd try to learn and protect yourself and not put yourself in any more risk than you have to. This is actually something I noticed from my celebrity status on YouTube here, and I say that as jokingly as possible. I'm certainly no big name in the community, nor really should I be. I'm an enthusiast, and I enjoy sharing my hobby and what information I have, and I enjoy having a conversation, even if it's me talking into a camera and then other people responding in comment section or through messages. But through doing this, I've built some degree of notoriety and reputation, albeit minor. I'm well aware of my celebrity status, and I do not mean to overstate it. But in some of the interactions I've had in selling and trading swords, people have been willing to be profoundly trusting with their money because they've seen my face on YouTube, or they've read about, me selling a sword to somebody else on a forum and having good luck. And because of that, because I've made reviews or made a video or you've seen my face, there's a level of trust that seems to happen there. And I'm grateful for it. I'm humbled by it. But at the same time, I would discourage you from doing that, even if it's, more of an inconvenience to me. And that's because if you haven't dealt with me in the past, I'm still a random stranger from the internet, as are any of the other people in the community. In fact, if you can read some of the history on Sword Buyers Guide Forum or Sword Forum International, there's a few examples of respected members of the community that have faltered and, basically failed to hold up their end of deals and, taking advantage of people. And so just because somebody has a reputation, hopefully there's a degree of trust and comfort that comes with that, but still don't risk more than you have to. And when I say risk more than you have to, there have been people that have been interested in buying stuff that I have and willing to send me Western Union and basically put themselves in a position where they might be out the money and I get to keep the stuff. And, I could keep their money and their sword and just not send them anything, and they would be dicked. They would be in a very difficult position to try and recoup either of those things. Granted, there's still probably something that could happen. They could show up at my door and beat me with a sack of frozen oranges, but nevertheless, people have been really willing to be extremely trusting of me, and I'm glad it takes a lot of the risk off me. If somebody's willing to be really trusting, then I don't have to be trusting in return, and that takes a lot of risk off things in my end. But at the same time, I wouldn't advocate it. I wouldn't recommend doing it. As a seller, I'm not offended if somebody says, hey, I don't know you that well. Like, sure, you make YouTube videos and shit, but that doesn't mean fuck all. Like, I don't know you, and I'm not willing to trust you with my hard-earned money if I don't have to. Very often there's an equitable way to solve that problem. PayPal charges a fee, but they act as an intermediary if somebody ends up being a dick in the transaction, and there's a way to often solve problems. eBay is kind of the same thing. But yeah, don't send Western money. Sometimes even checks can be a pain in the ass. People don't send cash in the mail. There's ways to protect yourself, and even if you trust the person, still try to minimize the risk, especially if you don't know anyone in their circle that you can talk to, if you don't live close to pick up your items if something happens, if don't risk. Really, the point is more than you have to risk. There's always a risk in doing any type of transaction. At any point, shit could go awry, but still at least try to minimize it, and don't put yourself out there more than you have to. Sometimes it requires a leap of faith or a bit of trust. Just do so, enter into those situations wisely. Anyway, that's all I have for you. I would really love it if you guys shared some of your lumps and bumps that you took along the way, some lessons that you learned, especially if it's first-hand information rather than second or third-hand information. If you have stories of shit that's gone bad, stories of lessons that you wish you had known before you started, all of that I think is really valuable information for people coming in the community to protect themselves and do things the right, smart way. So if you have it, I'd love to hear the story, especially if it's just stupid and comical, because those are always the best, where dumb compiles with dumb and bad things happen and it's hilarious because farts are funny. Anyway, that's really the point. I'd love to hear your stories. I certainly have lots to learn myself. As I mentioned, I'm in the midst of a crappy situation myself, and that shows, shit happens to me too. So certainly I could probably learn a lot from some of the lumps and bumps people have taken, and I would be really grateful if it's shared. So that's really all I got for this week, and I appreciate y'all watching. Cheers, and thanks for watching. That seems redundant, but that's what I say. Anyway, cheers, and thanks for watching.